All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live for the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast here today, and welcome. This should be a lot of fun coming into today's race. Let me turn my PlayStation off real quick. I probably should have done that before the start. I think we had an issue with music the last time, so this time we're going to not have an issue with music. But anyway, we are here. We're here to talk none other than Talladega, the Geico 500. What happened this weekend? As usual, we go in chronological order. But first, I want to kind of start off with talking about the first race of the weekend, the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. Usually, I don't talk about the Xfinity Series, but I'm going to highlight it this week because I was there for both races this last weekend at Talladega. I'll get into my experiences. First and foremost, I thought both races were pretty good all the way through. The Xfinity Series race was fairly clean. They had that last accident with just under 30 laps to go when it happened. There were about 5 or 6 cars involved in it. Brandon Jones took a big hit into the outside wall. He was one of the major drivers that were involved in that said accident. Stage 1, Justin Haley won. He was my pick to win the race. Stage 2 was won by Noah Gragson. And pretty much there was 2 and 3 wide racing the entire way. They knew that they were racing the rain. I would have to assume, especially when we got to about that halfway mark, that the race was going to be deemed official. And sure enough, it did. The rain came with 23 to go during that last 6-car crash off turn 2 to bring out the caution. And right before they were about to go green is when it started raining. I think they did give them the 1-to-go signal like they were about to go green. And then when they were on the back straightaway, it did start raining. I was sitting near the start-finish line, so we were like the first to get the rain because of the way the storm was coming from. Basically came from over top the front stretch grandstands first, and that's where it started raining. And it was a pretty steady rain at first. They ended up running a couple more laps under caution just to see if it was going to go away. And then it just started to downpour a little bit quicker, so they pulled the cars to pit road. And Jeb Burton was in the lead at the timing of the caution, barely over Austin Cindric. And Jeb Burton goes on to win his first career NASCAR Xfinity Series race. Congratulations to him. He tried to do a burnout in the rain as well. I got a little bit of a video of that. There was no smoke, but for anybody that knows or might have seen a rain burnout before, it is tough to do. I had seen one other rain burnout in person, actually, was Michigan 2018 when Clint Boyer tried to do it. And there was actually some smoke. He did a really good job. Jeb Burton, not so much, but Jeb Burton definitely new to the victory lane in recent years in NASCAR with this one at Talladega this last weekend, so congratulations to him. Now into the Cup Series race, what we all came here to talk about. This is the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. I want to talk about the Cup Series race, what happened in chronological order as always, then we'll go over the fantasy review, the drivers that I had on the must-haves, the don't-haves, and the sleeper picks, and see how they all stacked up against the odds. In the race, starting off with Stage 1, just a couple laps in, Kyle Larson had to pull onto pit road, had an issue that it could have been resolved if they had any sort of lapse in practice. He had to go to the garage. Tough break. I know it was a boneheaded mistake by whoever it is at Hendrick Motorsports that made that issue that just is inexcusable, regardless of the fact if we had practice or qualifying. But still, if we had practice or qualifying, this is the ideal situation right here. You have not only just any car in the field. We've seen this with cars in the field both this year and last year without practice or qualifying, but especially this one right here in this instance where you got Kyle Larson. I know he hasn't been that great at Talladega, and it is Talladega of all tracks. Anybody could win, but it's a Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet. You shouldn't see these types of issues happen. Sure enough, it ended up happening to him. He had to pull the garage. He finished last place, never got the car back on the track. They did try to go back out and run a couple more laps after he pulled it onto pit road on like lap 2, and he got another lap or 2 in off the pace, and that was pretty much it. The engine had expired at that point. Tough break for Kyle Larson, to say the least. The first caution for incident today, so this was after the competition, the first caution for incident came when Joey Gase had spun out, and pretty much all by himself. There wasn't a clear replay that he had contact. They said that there was contact. No indication of that, but that was the first caution for incident. Late in Stage 1 was before we ended up getting the next caution for incident, and that was the wildest ride of the day I think that we saw. Fox had a couple great replays of it. Joey Logano ended up flipping down the back straightaway, mainly going into turn 3. It was a train line on the outside of the racetrack. Not that they were train racing, but it was a single-file train line on the top. They were trying to get some momentum going. You had Ricky Stenhouse pushing Denny Hamlin, who was pushing Joey Logano at the same time, and pushed him into Blaney. Then there were 4 cars pushing each other. And then when Blaney got to Benedetto, I think he had to get out of the gas knowing, okay, I'm coming in with a huge head of steam. So basically, you had 5 cars pushing each other at once. The chain reaction game happened there. Sent Logano spinning. Once Hamlin did try to pull low as well with all those cars pushing, it only got Logano loose, and there was no way for Hamlin to even get out of the gas if he was trying to get out of the gas because he had Stenhouse behind him pushing. And I'm sure the view inside the car just was pretty much blocked off with everything happening. You can't see what's going on. Some of that could be on the spotters saying, hey, you got 5 cars pushing each other single file. But regardless of the fact, no, it was just a racing deal at Talladega. We see these things happen a lot, especially in recent years, especially with this package currently. What we usually don't see is cars go blowing over quite like Logano's did. We have had blowovers in the past. That same area of the track, you look at Brendan Gaughan 2 years ago in the fall race in 2019, he had a blowover. But those were when the speeds were maybe about 5 miles per hour faster with this package. And there were a lot more cars in the pack to take the air off of Gaughan's car that day versus Logano's right here. Logano just simply, I mean, the roof flaps came up. They did their job. Well, they tried to do their job. They didn't do it successfully, and the air just got underneath the back of the race car. Logano goes up and over, lands on his roof, slides into the outside wall on his roof, and then flips back over onto all fours, sliding down the banking. In the midst of all that, somehow everybody missed him. Bubba Wallace had a slight bit of damage, and I mentioned the cool replay camera, but that was something that I did not see when we were actually at the racetrack that day, but something I did see on the Fox replay coming back the next day. So that was just awesome view, to say the least. One of the best, I think, in-car views that we've seen of an accident at Talladega in quite some time. I think back to, Robbie Gordon's camera view in the 2005 spring race when Scott Riggs went flipping on the front stretch. I think that was a wild in-car camera, too. This one was very reminiscent of that. A little bit different accident. It was very similar to, honestly, Elliott Sadler's accident going into turn 3. Only Sadler caught a little bit of grass. So there are some differences between the two, but that was probably the most comparable. And he didn't roll over end, but most comparable, at least at Talladega with the area of the track. The fact that it was only a single car incident for the most part. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. did have significant damage from that, but he was still running on decent speed after that accident. Stenhouse was my pick to win the race. Stage 1 results looked like this, and now I got to get back to the stage results. Again, I'm having an issue with trying to get you guys to see what the stage results and everything else is, which sucks because I'm putting a lot of work into the editing of this, so that way during the podcast I can show you guys, the actual results as I talk about them. But the stage 1 results look like this. Matt DiBenedetto gets his first stage win, not only of the season but of his career. Ryan Blaney finishes 2nd, Chase Elliott 3rd, Denny Hamlin 4th, William Byron 5th, Chris Buescher 6th, Alex Bowman 7th, Michael Mcdowell 8th, Kevin Harvick 9th, and Christopher Bell rounded out the top 10. Keselowski also spun in that incident, but he really didn't have any damage. He just kind of spun when he went down to the flat on the apron and then the transition back to the banking, but nobody else hit him, so his car was looking pretty good, but pretty much the only car with heavy damage to at least take him out of the race during that accident was Logano. He went on to finish 39th. On to stage number 2. We had green flag pit stops through the middle of the stage due to the long start to the stage without a caution, and Denny Hamlin sped not once but twice. One time you can get away with it at Talladega. If you have a little bit of drafting help, you could probably stay on the lead lap, but the second time definitely put him a lap down and put him in a pretty much dire situation to try and get the free pass from all the slower cars. We ended up getting a caution. Kurt Busch ended up losing oil pressure. He went down onto pit road, actually got that car back on the racetrack after only losing 6 laps, and all those were under caution. And he was actually back up to speed. He was keeping up with the leaders after that, so I'm not sure exactly how that ended up coming out to be, especially after green flag pit stops. You wonder if something there might have triggered that loss of oil pressure, but they had to throw the caution. There was oil on the racetrack at the time, and that was a caution that guys like Chase Elliott needed, who had a slow pit stop that was running further back, and then there were a lot of other cars that might have been hanging out in the back, avoiding the inevitable big one at that point in time that were about to go lap down also. It really got strung out during the green flag stops, but everybody was bunched back together for that next restart. At the end of stage number 2, we had a 5-car accident. Bubba Wallace, first and foremost, went on to win Stage 2, also his first career stage win and first stage win of the season, so good for him, much like with what happened with DiBenedetto in Stage 1, and both those cars were very, very fast. We saw Bubba was fast in the Daytona 500 this year. He was definitely fast at Talladega again on Sunday. The 5-car incident took out a couple of the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas, and even at the time, I don't know if it was on the vlog/race highlight video that ended up posting, but at the same time, we had an issue with or not an issue, but there was an incident and it involved Denny Hamlin. I don't know why Hamlin was racing up there with the leaders like he was. I get trying to get your lap back and not getting the free pass, but of all racetracks, there's two of them really, Daytona and Talladega. Those two racetracks, to get the free pass and line up at the rear of the lead lap, especially with that much time left in the race, really doesn't mean anything. We know Denny Hamlin has been a great super speedway racer. That's why even when he was a lap out, he was able to get towards the front of the field like he did. But it just did not work out for him, obviously. He got turned from behind from teammate Martin Truex Jr. Again, a lot of what happened on the back straightaway into turn 3 happened right here, where you just had multiple cars pushing each other at the same time. Truex didn't quite get Hamlin cleanly like what happened with Stenhouse and Hamlin earlier in the day. They just didn't align cleanly. And part of that was because Hamlin tried to pull out of line and make a pass in the center of the tri-oval. Took out Alex Bowman. His day was done after that. I didn't think he had that much damage, but they failed to get the car back on the track during the damage clock policy, so he had to pull to the garage. He finished 38th. Tough break for him. A couple of the other Hendrick cars were involved as well. Chase Elliott, William Byron. Byron really didn't have any damage. Chase Elliott had a little bit of damage after the contact he had made with Truex when Truex came down the track after Hamlin hit the wall. And, of course, Hamlin had a lot of damage there. I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. ended up getting into the crash a little bit more because he had some even more damage than what he had earlier in the day. So tough break there for him. That was from trying to get onto pit road. I forgot about that. Stenhouse tried to get onto pit road, slid the tires, nosed it into the wall. They stayed green. They didn't get a caution for it. I don't know how he got the car corrected back again after hitting it with the left front. That's where his damage came from. He inevitably hit... Sorry, I messed up there. Inevitably finished 33rd. Hamlin ended up 32nd. He could not get his laps back. He actually fell 2 laps down after that accident because of having to repair the damage under the yellow flag and under the stage right there. So, tough break for some fast race cars, to say the least. Denny Hamlin was one of the must-haves. We'll get into that a little bit when we talk about how all those guys stacked up. Bubba Wallace, again, goes on to win Stage 2. Brad Keselowski second. Michael McDowell finishes third in the stage, finished third and eighth in both stages. He was on the top 10 basically all day. Kyle Busch ended up finishing 4th, Ryan Preece 5th, Ryan Blaney 6th. He was also in the top 10 all day. Chris Buescher 7th. He was one of the sleeper picks, and he finished in the top 10, 6th and 7th in both stages. Great for him. Stenhouse was able to finish 8th, riding it under yellow to at least get the caution laps back right there, but regardless of the fact, he ended up, again, finishing 33rd. Christopher Bell finished 9th. He was in the top 10 in both stages, and rookie Harrison Burton making his first career start. Really impressed. He finished 10th at the end of Stage 2, was running in the top 10 late in the race as well, until things did not transpire well for him. Into the final stage of the race. As I pull my notes back up again, we had more green flag pit stops, much like with Stage 2. That really split the field apart. And a lot of that is because you had the Chevys pitting with the Chevys, the Fords pitting with the Fords, and the Toyotas, I think, pitted with the Chevys in the second stage, and then they kind of pitted with the Fords in the next stage, which I thought was very interesting, that they kind of split that strategy off a little bit. So the field was very spaced apart. It looked like we were only going to have about maybe 16, 17 car pack there for the finish until caution came out with just about 20 laps to go. Quinn Houff had hit the wall hard. I can't remember off the top of my head if he blew a tire that caused him to hit the wall or if he just flat out lost control of the car. But regardless of the fact, single car accident for Quinn Houff. His day came to an end there. He was actually having a good run. I think I remember him on the leaderboard as high as 17th. In that stage after the green flag stops happened, because the Chevys had been faster on pit road than the Fords and getting up to speed. Whatever went into the green flag stops, both in Stage 2 and Stage 3, and that worked out for Houff really well. He was running 17th. Tough break for him, though. He ends up finishing outside the top 30. And then we had our last caution of the day, presumably with a little less than 10 laps to go, which was big for my guy, Ryan Blaney, who, for whatever reason, Todd Gordon decided to put tires on the race car during the green flag pit stops. They took 4 tires. Everybody else took either 2 or no tires, and he lost so much track position under green. He was drafted with Ryan Newman, and I can't remember who else he was drafting with, but he was drafting with like 3 cars, so they were falling off the pace. That Houff caution helped him. We had some drivers pit there, and then more drivers ended up pitting, and he was able to work through the field a little more before the Truex caution, so that put him in contention to win the race. But if it wasn't for the Houff caution right there, Blaney would have finished well outside the top 20 despite scoring all those stage points, and kept him with a chance to win the race for sure. we've seen these calls out of Todd Gordon, excuse me. I think of last year in the All-Star race when Blaney had a fast car and they decided at the end of the the end of the first segment to leave him out on the racetrack and not take tires when everybody else did, and inevitably he ended up losing the lead and losing more than that. He still hung on to fifth, which goes to show how good of a car he had that day. But on old tires, 55-lap old tires at Bristol, it was never going to end well. He had a fast car that day. Maybe he had a shot to win. And he had a fast car at Dega. Really, all the Fords usually tend to run well. The Penske Fords especially were working well together. Before Logano crashed at the end of Stage 1, he was obviously up in third when it happened with DiBenedetto, Blaney in front of him. Keselowski was up there too. All of those guys were working very well together today. I know that team meeting they had earlier in the week had to have helped that, hey, we need to work together a lot better than what we did at Daytona. And look at what we did at Daytona when we were working well together until the final lap of the race at that point in time. So definitely worked out to near perfection really all day long outside of the Logano accident. It was the only issue they really had, and that had nothing to do with Penske really, other than the fact Logano was a heavy incident involved. It was just getting tagged from cars behind and the chain reaction crash, of course, there as well. Garrett YT, 2936. I was at Talladega. I was too. It was a great time for sure. Ethan, welcome to the stream also, as well as Garrett. Let's see. Talladega is the best race track for any racing of any type. It is definitely one of my favorite racetracks. Between that and Bristol, my two favorite tracks that I've been at in person for sure. That was my second race at Dega, and I thought it was even better than the first one. That is for certain. Wanted Matty D to win. I'm sure a lot of people did. That crowd was roaring for Matty D late in the race. So after that Truex caution happened, that actually ended up forcing a green-white checker. I think they were in overtime. They went past the scheduled distance. I'm all for NASCAR doing overtimes. Preferably, I'd like them to just have one restart at it. We never had more than one in this case, which usually you tend to see, the big wrecks happen, especially with that many cars still in the race. So that was very, very cool to see those guys finish under green. That many cars finish the race, especially. That's my type of racing. It was very similar to the spring race at Talladega last year, which I thought was a great race, one of the best races of the season. I had it, I think, last year at the end of the year as my second favorite race of the year, right behind the Bristol spring race. So definitely a fun time at Talladega. Both of those days, it was clean racing, aggressive racing for most of the day. Yeah, you had those two incidents here, but they didn't take out a lot of cars. Again, Bowman, I think, was the only guy to DNF and really fall way off the pace in general from that accident on the second lap. Stenhouse had his self-issues under green. We never had a caution for it, and obviously Logano flipped. But outside of that, it was pretty good. Remember Garrett Master 2000, that channel? Oh, okay, Garrett. There we go. Yeah, I remember you. Welcome back. I didn't recognize that you changed your channel name. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for tuning in. So on to the green-white checker. Anyway, I lost where I was there for a second. So on to the green-white checker. We had I believe, an overtime finish there. Matt DiBenedetto, Ryan Blaney on the front row. And if you guys watched the video that I uploaded of me watching the race live in person, and not only that, but also watching the finish of the race itself. Man, dude, I was rooting for him so hard. I've never seen him win in person. I only got the chance to see Greg Biffle race twice, so I never really grew up having a chance to watch him. And I was at the back end of his career when he wasn't that great and Roush was falling off the face of the earth. So, and Ryan Blaney, I actually got to see that day in Michigan 2015. So I have seen Blaney race in all of the Cup races I've been to in person. He's only got 5 career wins, 2 of them at Dega. I really thought when he restarted second. And knowing Matt DiBenedetto, it hasn't been the clutchest of drivers, that's for sure, over the last couple of years when in those situations. I thought Blaney had it. And he got a little help from Harvick on the last restart on the outside lane. It was all for naught. Harvick, I think going into turn 3 is when he let go of him. And I don't know if maybe he was trying to set up a move for himself or his car was overheating. If none of those two cases were the reason he pulled off, I have no clue why he pulled off. When he did, Blaney started to file back. And by the time they got through the tri-oval to the start-finish line, Blaney started to have a little bit of a run again because Harvick ended up getting back to his back bumper once again. But not a big enough run. But Matt DiBenedetto still pulled to the high side to block Blaney instead of staying on the bottom in front of Keselowski. And Brad had a big run behind DiBenedetto as well when Matt went high to block Blaney. Keselowski gets to the inside. They ran side by side for about a half lap before Keselowski was able to pull clear about halfway down the back straightaway after a great push from fellow Ford driver Michael McDowell, same guy who was pushing him up towards the front end of turn 3 in the Daytona 500 last year before McDowell went on to win the race. I thought for a second off turn 4, when McDowell let off the back bumper of Keselowski and he had that run from William Byron, that he was going to be able to win his second race of the season and get around Keselowski. He swung high, but Byron ended up staying down low to, I guess, help Keselowski. Byron wasn't really in a spot he could have won in that situation, unless he would have turned DiBenedetto into Keselowski and pulled a Vickers 2006. But unless that happened, Byron wasn't going to get the win, and I don't see Byron doing that anyway. He's a pretty clean racer for the most part. So William Byron stayed with Keselowski. They were both Fords. I think if McDowell was in a Chevy, then he would have went with McDowell, had the manufacturer alliance, or even if it was a teammate, something of that nature, I think he absolutely would have went with Matt DiBenedetto. But because there was no manufacturer alliance there, he was kind of in it for himself, and he was in a position where Keselowski didn't come off the bottom. And when Matt DiBenedetto went high, there wasn't enough room for Byron to squeeze in between. So he was left out to dry, and Byron actually ended up beating DiBenedetto to the line for second. So I guess in hindsight, it did kind of work out for him. He got a better finish than what he would have if he went with McDowell. I don't think they both would have gotten around Keselowski. So that ended up working out to perfection for Brad Keselowski. He goes on to win his first race of the season, tying Dale Jr. and Jeff Gordon for, I believe, second all-time for wins at Talladega. Impressive to know, especially that Keselowski has a lot of races left in his career. That was the only lap he led the entire race. It was the last lap pass for the win. And overall, again, a great race. It was one of the best finishes I've seen in person. Definitely up there in the top 3. And it was probably my favorite race I think I've seen in person so far of the 15 Cup races that I've now seen. Man, we're getting up there already. It's amazing how quickly that these have come into fruition. That's if you count the All-Star race. That would have been number 15, which a lot of you guys say that I should count it, so I will count it. But yeah, that was pretty much everything that happened at Talladega. The only other thing we have to talk about the race is the fantasy. Of course, it's the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. So we'll take a look at the drivers that I had mentioned for the must-haves, the sleepers, the don't-haves, how they stacked up throughout the course of the day, if I was right or wrong. We'll start off with the don't-haves. I was correct on both of the don't-haves. Mark Truex Jr., he was up front minimal. Well, I mean, pretty much everybody was up front at one point in time in the race, at least running there if they weren't leading laps. Kind of like Keselowski, he was there all day, just never led a lap except for the final lap of the race, which was the most important. But yeah, Martin Truex Jr. finished 31st. I said he was not going to get a top 15 finish. I was right on that one. And I said Kyle Busch wasn't going to get a top 10. Both of those guys have had terrible recent history at Dega. Kyle Busch finished 18th, and Kyle Busch, I think, finished 8th in one of the stages, and he didn't score any stage points in stage 2. So he didn't really score a lot of points today, and then that 18th place finish definitely didn't help him either. So I was perfectly correct on telling you guys not to put Kyle Busch or Truex in your lineup. 100% correct. No regrets on that. The sleeper picks, I had 3 of them. Nearly a must-have with Almirola, but it was pretty much borderline. And I let I wouldn't say my emotions get the best of me there, because Eric Almirola just didn't look fast. We saw a couple of the other Stewart-Haas Fords running towards the front, like Kevin Harvick there late in the race. Even Cole Custer was up towards the front. I think Custer led some laps in the race too. So he actually looked like he had a strong Ford, but for whatever reason, Eric Almirola just was not running well. He was hanging at the back earlier in the race, trying to avoid an accident, but so were Harvick and Custer. A lot of I think Briscoe was too. So they're all kind of hanging back. That was their game plan from the start of the race. No surprise there. We've seen Harvick do it in recent years, and definitely interesting to see Almirola do it. I think after he wrecked in the fall race here last year while leading, just pretty much the wrong place at the wrong time. In stage 1 there, he wanted to be at the back this time instead of controlling his own destiny, and he was just never able to work his way through the front of the field, never led any laps, and finished 15th. That was a disappointment there. I said that he could have gotten a top 10. I wasn't completely sold on it because it's been Almirola and it's been 2021. He's had an absolutely terrible season outside of his top 10. A couple races ago at Richmond, which was only his first top 10 of the year. So definitely tough there. Trevor Grimes, welcome to the stream. He was so close. He definitely was close. But a third place finish nevertheless. He won a stage. I mean, he had a great points day. Let's see here. So the next driver I had on the sleeper picks was Chris Buescher. And as far as the finishing position goes, he finished 21st, which usually I would say that I was wrong on that. I did say he was going to get a top 10, or at least had a good capability of getting a top 10 finish, kind of like what I said with Almirola, that he could have been there late. He has been good at Talladega, especially in the spring races the last couple years. He did actually win a stage last season as well at Dega. He was what happened to him on the final restart, but he was 6th and 7th at the end of both stages, finished 21st, so he still had a decent points day. All things considered, he's still in the top 16 in points also. So I'm not going to say I was completely wrong on Buescher. The finish just didn't prove well to how he actually ran throughout the race. And then Ryan Newman was the last of the sleeper picks. He finished 13th. He was the highest of the 3 sleepers that I had. He has been very good on this super speedway package since it debuted, even in the 2500 when he wrecked. He ended up finishing in the top 10. His only 2 top 10s last year were both on super speedways, and I thought he could have gotten a top 10 again this year. Again, Roush has been a little bit faster, and the Fords in general were fast today. Ryan Newman, though, goes on to finish 13th. So my downside, I think, was the sleeper picks for the most part. Well, I had a couple must-haves, I guess. It's so hard to predict Talladega. I was perfect on the don't-haves. I was perfect on there. And then the sleepers, it was kind of iffy. There were a lot of stage points scored for Buescher at least, but definitely interesting to go forward into the super speedways with the fantasy. But I did good there last year. I didn't change my lineup too much, and it just didn't work out again this year. That's all. Now into the must-haves. We'll start off with Ryan Blaney. He was one of the 3 must-haves that I had. He has won there 2 of the last 3 races going into this last weekend, and he ran the top 10 all day. He finished 9th, and he scored a lot of stage points. He finished 2nd at stage 1, and he finished 6th in stage 2. So Ryan Blaney was a must-have. He lived up to the high expectations that I had for him, and avoided there wasn't a big one, so I guess he didn't have to avoid the big one. He was ahead of the Logano accident barely, too, so that definitely helped keep him out of trouble throughout the course of the day, and he led some laps along the way as well. I think he led the 3rd most laps in the race. The next guy I'm going to talk about that was a must-have is Denny Hamlin. Hamlin did lead the most laps in the race. He actually led 43 laps, which I didn't realize anybody led over 40 laps in the race. But he did lead the most laps, so he definitely had a strong car. The 2 pit road speeding penalties put him behind the 8 ball, and him pretty much racing up at the front of the field at the end of stage 2 when he didn't have to. He was well within the free pass position. Just hold your own lane. Don't make any aggressive moves, and it didn't pan out for him there. He ended up dropping back, finishing 32nd. So if it wasn't for the 2 penalties, I think he would have had a top 10. I expected him to compete for the win as well. So downside with the finish for sure with that must-have. And then Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was also a downside to the must-haves. He ran well. He did actually score stage points in stage 2 with damage from the Logano accident very early, and then nosed the pit entrance wall. That pretty much put a damper to his day. He lost a couple laps there trying to repair the damage when it did end up happening. I said that was in stage 2 earlier. It was in the final stage, I believe, because he did score an 8th place finish even with damage. So that car was definitely fast. Just a rough day for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but that's all on his own. He just slid the tires too much and lost control. We saw that happen in the Xfinity race, too. I can't remember who spun out in the Xfinity race, got it corrected, and then they stayed green there. That was very similar to what happened to Stenhouse, only he had made contact with the wall, damaging his race car, and dropped him outside of the top 30. He's still in the top 16 in points, though, so go Ricky. But yeah, as far as the fantasy team went, it definitely hurt there. So it was a little mixed on Talladega. I didn't nail it perfectly, but I definitely had some very strong points with Blaney having a great day like I said he was going to. And then the 2 don't-haves did not have a good day at all of Truex and Kyle Busch. So that's pretty much it. I guess I didn't go through the top 10. Keselowski again won the race. William Byron second. He's been performing very, very well. He's actually finished in 3 of the last 4 super speedway races. Byron has 2 second-place finishes and a first-place finish, so that's really good. Byron's been doing well. Michael McDowell finishes 3rd after winning the 500. Great on the super speedways there. Kevin Harvick finishes another top 5 this year in 4th. Matt DiBenedetto 5th. Kaz Grala with a great run in his 3rd career start, finishing 6th. Tyler Reddick 7th. Austin Dillon 8th. Ryan Blaney 9th, and Cole Custer, I mentioned, he was up front. He led some laps throughout the course of the day. He finishes in the top 10, so a good run for him. I believe that's his first top 10 of the season, and boy, did he need it. So that is a wrap for Talladega, and if you guys are new to the channel, we do power rankings every week. So I have my list, my power rankings. Sorry, Ryan Blaney finished ninth. It was a good day still. I'm glad he didn't wreck, and it was unfortunate he could not win the race for my sake. But one of these days, with going to as many races as I do, he will win when I go there. I'd have to think. If he doesn't, boy, that's gonna stink. But hopefully he can get it done at some point. It'll be an emotional day when it happens. I was pulling for him so bad there. He's come so close so many times. He finished second at Kentucky when I saw him. He runs well. Again, this just goes to the fact that Ryan Blaney runs well when I go to see the Cup race live in person. Wherever they're at, he seems to run well. He just doesn't win. And he's always in the top 5. Or like Atlanta in 2019, I know he finished like 22nd that day, but that's because the caution came out in the middle of green flag stops, and he ended up getting trapped a lap down while he was leading with less than 100 to go. So he had a lot of tough break there. But yeah, outside of that, Indianapolis, he had a top 5 in 2018. That Kentucky finish was 2018. He's always ran good at Michigan whenever I go there in person. He always seems to, at least run inside the top 10 all day. He's just not there at the end of the race to win it. But that was the closest I've seen him to winning in person, outside of Kentucky when he finished second. But Truex was so strong at Kentucky that day, it was going to have to take a late race restart, and we never got it. But, man, one of these times he's going to get it done. Staying positive with that. And I will be seeing 11 more races this year, so hopefully he can get it done this season. All right, so on to the power rankings now for this week. Let me pull up the current NASCAR standings. We'll kind of go through there as I go through my power rankings. And usually we start off with number 10. We go up through 1, so we'll keep that format as the same. And we are going to start off with number 10 on this week's edition of the power rankings. Hang on. Got to get the results up here too from this last weekend. I didn't have it pulled up. One of these days I'll remember to do that. Talladega results. Oh, right, there we go. So now we got some backup coming on along right here. So number 10 on the list coming in from this last weekend is going to be Michael Mcdowell. Yes, Michael McDowell's back on the list. He dropped off the power rankings list before, but that third place finish at Talladega and a near win, I had to put him in. He was in the top 10 all day long. Again, he was in the top 10 all season in the power rankings until after last week. I figured, okay, he's now had a top 10 in 6 races up to that point. He was fading. Then he gets a top 5. He finishes third, and again, he ran top 10 all day. 8th or better in both stages. 3rd in the second stage, 8th in the first stage. So great job for Michael McDowell. He's 13th in the point standings right now, so he actually moved up 4 spots in the point standings after a great point stay this weekend at Dega. He's ahead of guys like Alex Bowman, Kurt Busch, that are right there in the cut line. Bowman has a win too, so McDowell isn't even the last guy in points with a win this season. Great for him. Michael McDowell comes in at number 10 on the list this week. Coming in at number 9 on the list this week, we are going to have Christopher Bell. Bell, he ran pretty good for most of the day as well. He scored stage points in each of the first 2 stages. He did not get a top 10 finish. Currently has one more top 10 than Michael McDowell this season. They both have 1 win. They both have 2 top 5. So very similar stats for both of them. Bell's been right around that 7th to 10th range on our power rankings all year. Definitely had a chance at a top 10 late in this race. Just didn't quite get it done. He actually finished 17th. So tough break there for him. Coming in at number 8 on the power rankings list, and this guy has been kind of in the upward trend. He's actually the only driver in the top 10 of the power rankings right now without a win, and that would be Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott, number 10 on the power rankings. Again, he's the only driver in the power rankings without a win this season, so he's still holding on to that spot. He's just been consistent, and another good run there. He was despite a damaged race car. He was at the back with the damaged race car in the second half of the race, so I don't fault him too much for that. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he obviously was, right there for a lot of stage points in stage 2. If it wasn't for that accident that ended the stage, and then he did finish in the top 5 in stage 1. So he's definitely been hit or miss in the super speedways. He does have 4 top 10s this year, 3 top 5s, and 1 stage win on the season. That is 1 more stage win than Bell. I know what you're thinking. The only reason I have him at 8th ahead of Bell and McDowell instead of Elliott being 10th on the power rankings list is simply where he's at in the regular season standings. He's 8th versus Bell is 10th in the regular season standings, and McDowell's 13th. So that's kind of how I staggered the order there in the back half. But Chase Elliott at number 8. Again, number 9 is Christopher Bell. Michael McDowell 10th on the list. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Alex Bowman, simply because he's got the win. I know he's not as consistent, it seems like, as Chase Elliott this season, but they both have the same amount of top 10s, and Bowman's got the one win. Bowman pretty much stays the same as where he was last week, and he did DNF. I thought about dropping him back and putting Bell ahead of him, because Bell did have a better finish, and he's better in the regular season standings. I'm sticking with my gut that I feel like the 48 team, on just the eye test, looking at the speed, has been faster than the 20, but they have been pretty close to each other. Those two are really interchangeable, honestly. Really, the entire 7th through 9th on this list is very interchangeable. That's the only question mark I have at the end of this Power Rankings video, is that I have Bowman ahead of Bell, and I'm basically just going off the eye test with that one. Drivers that did not make the list, now that we went through the back 4 that are definitely close. Kyle Busch has been close to being on that list all year. He's still 11th in points. He does have a decent amount of top 10s. He's got 5 of them right now. And he's got 2 top 5s. Austin Dillon as well has had a good season. He's got 4 top 10s, 1 top 5. They're both outside the top 10 in points, though. And those guys are really the only guys that are close to making it on the list that were not on the list for this week. Coming in at number 6, we've got Kyle Larson. Again, this guy is just on the downward spiral in recent weeks. Larson, in the last 5 races, only has 1 top 10 finish. Could be a little bit alarming. We do go to another mile and a half at Kansas next week, so that could be the upside for him. That team, Hendrick Motorsports as a whole, has been really good on the mile and a half this season. Larson's only win came on a mile and a half, and he dominated Atlanta on another one. So I expect Larson to run well at Kansas, especially with the high line probably being one of the more preferred lines there. Look out for Kyle Larson this weekend. But as far as the power rankings go, he stays stagnated. I'll give him a little bit of a pass this week, and the only reason I didn't drop him below is simply because Bowman didn't have a good day either, so I couldn't move him ahead. Elliott's still winless. And then Christopher Bell finished outside the top 15. And McDowell did have a top 3, but McDowell was off the list, so I wasn't going to jump him all the way up to 6th in the power rankings. So, yeah, coming in right there at number 6 is going to be Kyle Larson. Coming in next on the power rankings list is going to be Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney at number 5. He's currently 5th in the regular season standings. He has 1 win, 2 top 5s, and 5 top 10s this season. He just got his 5th top 10. He does have 3 stage wins on the year as well. So of the drivers I've mentioned so far, he's got just as many stage wins as Kyle Larson. He's got 1 less top 10 than him and 2 less top 5s, but he's so much further ahead of him in points. And a lot of that is just because of the recent success Blaney has had. Honestly, Blaney and Larson's seasons have been completely flip-flopped, where Larson was very strong at the beginning of the year. Blaney, those first 3 races, couldn't get a top 15 to save his life. His best finish was 15th in the first 3 races of the year, and then Blaney just turned it on after that with race win, 3 stage wins. He's had 5 top 10s in the last 6 races, so he has definitely been up. 5 top 10s in the last 7 races. He's finished 11th or better in all of those races as well. So Blaney has definitely been more consistent. I just mentioned Larson's on the slide down simply because he's only got 1 top 10 in the last 5 races. So easy for me to put Blaney ahead of Larson right there. Also, Blaney is 4 spots ahead of Larson in points, and he has over a full race worth of points ahead of Kyle Larson. He's 66 points ahead of him as well. So a lot more stage points for Blaney than what Larson's had this season. Overall, Blaney, number 5 on the list. Coming in at number 4, we have Joey Logano. So Logano drops back on the list by 1 spot hang on, wait a minute. Something's wrong with this list here. Did I skip a number again? I did that last week too. I think I skipped a number because Brad Keselowski should have been on this list after winning at Talladega. Okay, so I meant to have Blaney at 5 and then Keselowski at 6. I made a mistake somewhere in there. I'm not going to go through the whole thing again because we're getting late into this stream. We only usually do these for an hour, so I'm sorry for that. Let's see here. get the chat back up. My bad if you're following along on this one. Okay, so let me re-clarify here. We got Keselowski 6th, Blaney 5th, Logano 3rd. Logano has one more top 10 than Blaney and two more top 10s than Keselowski. All three of them have one win. Logano has 2 stage wins. Blaney's got 3. Keselowski's got 1. And I know Logano went flying through the air at Talladega, which is what dropped him from 3rd in the standings, the power rankings last week to 4th this week. But, yeah, Joey Logano. So, I am getting scrambled very bad here. Joey Logano, number 4 on the list ahead of his Penske teammates of Blaney and Keselowski. So if the championship 4 started today, I'd say Logano's that 4th driver. 6 top 10s in 10 races, not bad. Again, he's got a win, and he very well could have more than one win this season. He was close in the 500 in the Daytona Road Course as well. Hasn't been as consistent as Blaney as far as recent races go. Blaney's been the hottest driver at Penske. I know Keselowski just won, but Keselowski didn't finish in the top 10 in 4 straight races until Talladega when he won, and he only led 1 lap in the race, although he was at the front for most of the day. So I'm going to keep the Penske guys at least in order between the 3 of them after this week, especially with it being Dega. We go into Kansas next week where Keselowski's had a lot of success. So is Logano. They both won there in recent years. So, and with this package, Blaney's been fast there. Really, his entire career, Blaney's been fast at Kansas. So I expect all 3 Penske guys to run well. We'll see if they'll interchange after the Bushy McBush race 400 next week. At number 3 on the list, we've got Martin Truex Jr. 2 wins on the season. He is number 3. He was number 2 last week. 1 stage win on the year. He's got 2 race wins, so he's still the driver with the most wins through 10 races. Only 2, but that's because we have 8 other drivers with 1. 4 top 5s on the year for Truex. 6 top 10s, 2 wins. Again, we already mentioned that. He did not have a good run all day long, pretty much, at Talladega, nor has he at Talladega. And now I think, the last 12 races, his best finish is 13th. So it's definitely not been good for Martin Truex Jr. at that racetrack. I wasn't expecting it to be. I'm only going to drop him 1 spot this week. He still had a very solid season. A lot of people would probably consider him the second favorite for the championship right now, but Martin Truex Jr. is coming in number 3. It is close, though, between number 2 and number 3 this week. We have William Byron coming in at number 2. Byron has 8 top 10s this season. He had another one this weekend with a second-place finish at Talladega. He's got 3 top 5s as well. This was his 3rd. Still has that 1 win way back at Homestead in the 3rd race of the year, and he has 1 stage win that also came at Homestead. As far as his stats compared to Martin Truex Jr., Truex has 1 more top 5 than William Byron. Byron has 2 more top 10s than Martin Truex Jr., and 1 win for Truex. But I'm going off of recent success in the eye test right now. William Byron in those 8 top 10s this season, those have been 8 straight. So he is on a roll. He's got 8 straight top 10s. We'll see if he can continue that into Kansas, which I think he very well can. He's had some bad luck there in the past, but he's had some fast race cars. So I expect Byron to have at least a decent day and maybe keep that top 10 streak alive. Hendrick Motorsports has been very fast at Kansas as well. Look out for William Byron, guys. He is on the upswing. I have him right. If the championship 4 was today, I'd say Byron's in the championship 4 right now. He's 4th in the regular season standings as well. And he is tied for the most top 10s through the first 10 races of the year. I don't think anybody expected that out of William Byron so far this season, but he has proven a lot of people wrong, that's for sure. And number 1 on the list still, and the guy who has been number 1 on the list all season long is Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin has 5 stage wins on the year. He's got 2 more than the next closest driver, which would be Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson. Yeah. Just Blaney and Larson have 3. So Hamlin has 2 more stage wins than the next closest driver. He has the same amount of top 10s as Byron, so he's tied for the lead in top 10s. He does not have a win yet this season. He still has well over a 1-race lead in the point standings, 87 points back to Martin Truex Jr. Hamlin did not have a good day. He did get stage points in stage 1. Those 2 pit road speeding penalties took him out of a shot to get any sort of stage points in stage 2. Looked like he was going to get back on the lead lap and maybe have a shot in the final stage if he wasn't too aggressive there at the end of stage 2 when he didn't have to be. So Denny Hamlin is still number 1 on the list. He's got 8 top 5s as well this year. So 8 top 5s in 10 races. Awesome. I know he finished outside the top 30 this weekend, by far his worst finish of the year, but hey, you can't win them all. You can't win them all. And in this case, Denny Hamlin, He's been close to winning them all, but he hasn't yet broken into victory lane. He's got some good racetracks coming up. He's got 3 wins at Darlington in his career, or 5 or something like that. He's got a lot of wins at Darlington. He just won there once last year. That's coming up on the schedule in a couple races. He's good at Kansas. He won there 2 years ago in 2019. So expect Denny Hamlin to at least compete for wins again this season. He's by far the best driver so far, and that's why he's number 1 on the rankings. So again, my championship 4 right now, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano, in that order as of right now is my championship 4 if the championship race was to be this weekend. That is going to wrap things up here for this one. A little over an hour today. We had a lot to unpack with me being at the Xfinity and the Cup Series races this weekend, so I wanted to make sure I got through the Xfinity stuff as well. And like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content and more videos like this. We'll see how the power rankings will change at Kansas. We will have a Kansas pre-race on Sunday for our predictions edition of the podcast, which we always do on race day, or at least when I'm not going to the racetrack. We have them on race day. Like last week at Talladega was a little bit different, but back on Sunday again for this weekend's afternoon race for the Bushy McBush Race 400 at Kansas. I can't believe that is the title sponsor for the race this weekend, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. NASCAR Heat 5 doubleheader coming up next on a busy day on the channel. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you soon.